part of this stream that they may announce that HBO Max is going to put Justice League Snyder Cut up on HBO Max. Now, remember, let me be very, very clear about this. None of this is coming from reliable sources. None of this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline. And as of right now, none of the big legitimate news sites are backing this up. So I doubt this is happening.
There's this. I have this. I don't know if this is helpful. See that?
I actually do try to be balanced, and criticisms, I don't want to say left and right of these fandoms because that doesn't map out exactly, but some of the more notorious YouTubers and their questionable interpretations of certain IPs and the way certain fantasy books and or programs work out. Initially, I was going to focus on Quinn's ideas, but I want to be fair, and I've been very critical of Critical Drinker and a lot of his nonsense. And of course, in terms of big YouTubers, probably John Campea is fairly notorious on many levels. We're going to deal with the good stuff he does bring, which I think actually was rock solid, but we'll also deal with his somewhat embarrassing take on, and I want to be careful, this is an early trailer he's responding to, but even if it was a full trailer, I think he would have been, frankly, even more puzzled and confused because this is fairly laughable and just shows I don't think you understand anything about Lord of the Rings or Tolkien. So let's hear him in all his idiotic glory.
There's something conceptual about this thing where basically there's a comet flying through the sky. Now, whether that's supposed to be the representation of a return of Morgoth or the establishment of the new the reforming of the spirit of the enemy or whatever, I don't know what it's going to be. But the fact that that was there, that became a physical representation of the threat Middle Earth is going to face. And as it's sailing across the sky, all these different people groups look up and see the same doom coming, right? The same thing. And what was the line? That I can't remember what the one
Two episodes, so Perry Nemiroff, 2 episodes of The Rings of Power in, and so far, so good. The production value is pretty remarkable, one breathtaking visual after the next.
Well, for those who don't get the joke, I think he basically confused Sauron with Morgoth, or maybe thinks that Sauron is Morgoth and that they're interchangeable. No, they're completely separate. Because he used the phrase the enemy, and that's usually for Sauron, not Morgoth or Melkor. So I guess in his mind, Melkor, Sauron, well, it's basically the same thing. And the answer is no. They're very, very, very different. Sauron, we don't know too much about, but we do know he was once an elf. And essentially he became more and more corrupted and turned to Morgoth. Also, their stories are vastly, vastly different. Morgoth is essentially the satanic figure of the whole mythology, and I guess you could call Sauron one of the, quote, bad angels, metaphorically, who came to his side. They're very different beings. Power levels are different. Intentions are different. They're just very, very different. Yeah, he doesn't really know Lord of the Rings and or Tolkien, but he's a fan of the Peter Jackson films, so there's that. Okay, so he's not very well versed in the lore at any real deep level, but I do think he made actually a lot of valid points about some of the reactions from overwhelmingly almost everyone who had access to the early episodes. Again, this is only episodes 1 and 2 of Amazon and the Rings of Power, but really it was all uniform. There's almost no negative reviews whatsoever. Almost everyone said it's fairly good. There are a few nitpicks about the pacing or about the sheer number of characters you have to become familiar with, but basically everyone is saying, yeah, this is pretty astonishing work on almost all levels. There's a few things you could be critical about, but basically it's going to be a very, very good series, at least from the first 2 episodes. And the reaction to these positive early reviews is pretty shocking that they're just in denial and saying, no, shells. And I think here he's correct that there's been a definite shift in the fandom and wanting to basically be biased on the basis of nothing.
Really enjoyed it. That doesn't match up with the narrative that some of these people want. These people want the narrative to be that the show is terrible. They want it to be that's terrible. So what did they do? Instead of just saying, well, just because they liked it doesn't mean we will. No, what a lot of them did and got on my channel about says, well, then you need to make something up. Oh, well, I don't, okay, all those people who saw it were paid. They were paid by Amazon. That's what it is. Let's just make up shit. Yeah, they were paid. No, they weren't. But you can't accept that they weren't because you have to make up something to force something to fit your narrative. And it is
as epic as Lord of the Rings should be. J.A. Bayona and cinematographer Oscar Fowler continue to make magic together, a real dream duo. What else did this dipshit say? I mean, it is epic levels of nonsense. I have to be cautious when I say for the fans, because the show is quite dense, Tolkien heads would appreciate. But average people, I don't know if I see them tuning in week to week. That being said, you can feel and see the production value, thank God. Looks like a real movie at times.
As a Snyder fan, there's a big irony in him saying, people are just denying the basic facts, guys. I mean, listen, it could be good, it could be bad. Let's wait for it. But really, we can't deny at least these early reactions are good. Yeah, I think that's solid, although somebody who denied that the Snyder Cut existed for years, yeah, okay, his credibility isn't the greatest when it comes to denying basic facts, because at a certain point, it was pretty undeniable there was a Snyder Cut, and he was still like, guys, I think I've been in Hollywood long enough. I know what a cut is. I mean, maybe there's enough to put together a Snyder Cut, but is there really a Snyder Cut? He sometimes plays the word game as well in denying basic facts. But his point here, I think, is pretty powerful and valid that, yeah, maybe Rings of Power was being previewed to a biased audience, and maybe these, quote, critics don't know what they're talking about either. I mean, clearly his own hold on Middle-earth is kind of weak. But it could be that they're well-informed and they know what they're talking about, and they were being fair, and they had very skeptical stands coming in, but they were genuinely won over, and this will be like House of the Dragon. The same people who were naysaying and doomsaying flipped like a flapjack and had to face up to the obvious that, yeah, this show is pretty good. Maybe I don't like some of the casting. Maybe I don't like this or that about the behind-the-scenes production. Maybe I don't like the people who made the thing, but yeah, it's pretty genuine quality product, and if you want good fantasy, this is it. I think the only real question will be, is this going to be great Tolkien kind of content, or is this just good generic fantasy content that has some nods to Tolkien, but really is not connected to the mythology in any real way? That's at least a serious conversation. And whatever you think about it, they have spent the resources. Again, we have been here with Wheel of Time, where it began good, but then it steadily became worse and worse, and the quality dropped off. But unless something genuine catastrophic happens, yeah, I think Rings of Power will be what it is, a hit show. But whether it will be a hit Tolkien show, yeah, that's probably a more open question.